For decades, we've pretty much all thought of video games as entertainment, a hobby, right? A big industry for sure, but one that we figured was pretty much confined to the cultural sphere. Well, this analysis, it's going to propose a different, maybe more unsettling view, that video games have become the new, decisive battlefield for global power, the central arena where economic might, technological dominance, and cultural influence are all being fought over. And this whole thing kicks off with a number that is, well, it's almost hard to wrap your head around.
Okay, so to really get what's happening here, you have to appreciate the sheer scale we're talking about. In 2025, the global video game market hit a value of $188.8 billion. To put that in perspective, that is bigger than the global film and music industries combined. Now, this isn't just a big number. It's a massive pool of capital. It's a worldwide network of infrastructure, and maybe most important of all, it's the undivided attention of over 3.5 billion people. And that attention, that is the new strategic asset.
And that right there, that's the question that changes everything. Is all this capital just buying entertainment products? Or is it acquiring something much, much bigger, something more strategic? As we're about to see, this money isn't just buying games. It's buying influence, it's buying access to entire populations, and it's buying the very infrastructure of future power.
So, that brings us to our first big idea. On this new battlefield, we're not talking about tanks or battleships anymore. The weapon of choice, it's capital. Huge, state-backed investments are being used as a strategic tool to buy up not just companies, but entire ecosystems of cultural production.
Let's just take a look at a perfect case study, the massive acquisition of Electronic Arts. The anatomy of this deal tells you everything you need to know. It was led by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, the PIF, working with established private equity and, interestingly, a firm called Affinity Partners, founded by Jared Kushner. So what you're looking at isn't just a random group of investors. No, this is a powerful link-up of state capital, Wall Street know-how, and very direct political connections.
You have to understand, this isn't just business as usual. This is a geopolitical move, plain and simple. It's a key piece of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 strategy, which is basically their grand plan to move their entire economy away from its dependence on oil. The goal here is to pivot from an economy built on pulling resources out of the ground to one built on capturing the attention of the entire world.
And there's actually a term for this strategy: games washing. It runs on the exact same logic as the concept you've probably heard of, sports washing. You use the universal appeal and cultural power of gaming to, launder a nation's image on the global stage. You embed yourself in this beloved pastime to build up soft power and make your influence feel normal.
And this quote from industry analyst George Osborne just nails it. The acquisition wasn't just about buying a bunch of popular games. It was about buying a cultural distribution channel, a machine that can pump out content that strengthens their entire ecosystem, from game studios to esports leagues, all of it feeding into the nation's soft power.
But let's peel back another layer here, because it gets even more interesting. The most valuable thing they acquired might not even be a game like FIFA or Madden. It's the monetization engines inside those games. These modes like Ultimate Team are financial juggernauts, and they're built on these loot box mechanics that create what's been called a slot machine-like compulsion. So owning these systems isn't just about making money, it's about owning a perfectly tuned mechanism for influencing and profiting from human behavior on a massive global scale.
So all that financial muscle, that's really just the first layer of what's going on, because underneath it, something much more subtle is being constructed, a new kind of empire. This one isn't defined by physical land, but by the colonization of digital space and, ultimately, our attention.
In this digital colonization, it happens in a pretty clear three-step process. First up, the games themselves become these powerful carriers for cultural values. Their stories, their mechanics, their art styles, they all carry these implicit social ideas to a global audience. Second, while we're all playing, our attention and our data are being harvested. And this isn't just commercial data. We're talking about a huge library of behavioral information that becomes a strategic national resource. And finally, step 3. Recommendation algorithms use all that data to engineer our desires, quietly nudging us all towards the same things, creating this slow-moving cultural homogenization.
When you put it side by side with old-school empires, the parallels are kind of shocking. The territory is no longer physical land, it's the limited landscape of our attention. The main resource isn't oil or gold, it's our data. And the force used for control isn't an army, it's the algorithm, which is a much quieter and maybe more effective form of power.
So, what does all this really mean? It leads to a pretty radical idea.
In this new digital empire, the simple act of playing a game is a political act. Now, it's almost always unconscious for the player, right? You're just trying to have some fun. But for these new digital colonizers, your engagement is an incredibly valuable piece of their strategic power.
Now, this whole structure, this whole empire of influence, it's all built on a foundation of technology. And it's right here, in the race to develop and control the basic infrastructure of gaming, that the next phase of this geopolitical fight is happening. Technology has become the proving ground.
And what we're seeing is that all these technologies are being totally redefined. AI is going from a tool that helps make games to a strategic weapon that can create dynamic propaganda. Cloud gaming isn't a convenience anymore, it's critical state infrastructure. The metaverse isn't being thought of as some fun universal space, but as an arena for different civilizations to compete. And Web3, that whole idea of a decentralized internet on the blockchain, it promised to break up power, but it's quickly becoming a new way to centralize control.
There's a quote that just nails what this struggle is all about. The fight over cloud gaming isn't about who has the best streaming service. It's a fight for sovereignty. Because if you control the cloud, you control the pipeline to the digital imagination of millions of people. It's the modern version of controlling all the printing presses or all the broadcast towers.
Okay, so when you start to pull all these threads together, the money, the digital colonization, the weaponized tech, a picture of a new kind of world order starts to take shape. And it's a future where the maps are drawn not just on land, but through these digital ecosystems.
So looking ahead to, say, 2030, one of the most likely scenarios is something that might sound crazy: the end of the internet as we know it. We're seeing the rise of a splinternet, a fracturing of the digital world into these competing geopolitical blocks. You'll likely have an American-led sphere, a totally separate Chinese sphere behind its great firewall, and this new, emerging Middle Eastern sphere fueled by all that sovereign wealth. Each one with its own platforms, its own rules, its own culture.
And in this new, fractured world, the tools of statecraft are going to look very different. The actual mechanics of gaming are going to be repurposed. Games themselves will become back channels for diplomacy. You could see in-game economies being used to get around or even enforce real-world sanctions. The fight to hire the best game developers will become a new front in the tech Cold War. And big regulations like the digital rulebooks coming out of Europe, they'll be used as economic weapons to protect their own digital territory from outsiders.
And all of this could lead to a really chilling endgame: the rise of digital content cartels. Just imagine an organization with the power and structure of OPEC, but instead of controlling the flow of oil, it controls the flow of digital culture. A small group of state-backed giants could decide which games, which stories, and which values get seen by the world, creating a terrifying new form of information control, a gaming OPEC.
Which, of course, brings us back to one final, and I think, crucial question. In a world where our entertainment is so tangled up in geopolitics, where every click and every hour we play is feeding these new empires, can that same entertainment also be an act of resistance? The game is already being played. The only real question left is what role we, the players, are going to choose.